Hello, and welcome to episode 5.6, the October 29th, 2025 Gathering Gloom edition of Notes from the Aisle Seat, the podcast that covers the arts in northern Chautauqua County, sponsored by the 1891 Fredonia Opera House. My name is Tom Laughlin, and I'm your host as we bring you news and information about arts events at the Opera House and around the region, including interviews with artists and creators across the county. I don't know why I didn't realize this until I became older, but the Halloween or Day of the Dead traditions at the end of October represent that final flourish between the coming of winter and the death-like landscape it brings. We celebrate one last time the end of all things warm and green and set ourselves for shorter days, less light, and barren landscapes. Just a few days ago, I went around the house locking and sealing the windows to tighten the house against the coming cold. Baseball will end, standard time will begin, and it won't be long before that first snowflake flies. So get ready.
Are we ever gonna once have it easy? Nope. Feeling ready,
Feeling stoked,
feeling queasy.
we could fail, but we have to try.
Don't feel bad, cause we're usually about to die. Bring on the monsters, bring on the monsters, bring on the real world. Bring on the monsters, bring on the real.
If you're a lover of Greek mythology like I am, you might find the current musical running at the Marvel Theater to be an unexpected treat. The Lightning Thief, the Percy Jackson Musical, is on for its second weekend of shows during the first weekend in November. Here to talk about it is director Dr. Jessica Hillman-McCord and members of her student cast. I'm joined now by the director and three members of the cast of The Lightning Thief, the Percy Jackson Musical, which is currently on stage at the Walter S. Gloor Main Stage Series Department of Theater and Dance at SUNY Fredonia, performing at the Marvel Theater. They've already had one weekend, and they're going to be coming up on their second weekend. They have three shows more to go. Saturday, November 1st, they've got two shows, a matinee and an evening performance, and a Sunday matinee. So I want to welcome each one of you. I'll get each one of you just quickly, but for now, I'm going to start with the director, Dr. Jessica Hillman-McCord. She is a professor at within the department, and she picked one hell of a musical here, Jessica. So I think the first thing I'm going to ask you is, how did you come about this particular musical? It's not a well-known title. Its Broadway run was very limited, it's actually it's reopened on the West End. But tell us about it. I knew nothing about it before I saw the title.
Yeah, it's definitely less known as a musical, but it's incredibly well known as a book series by Rick Riordan. There's the original 5, but then I don't even know the amount of Percy Jackson books there are now, but a lot. I read the books with my daughters a few years ago, and we all loved them and thought they were really fun. And then right around that time, the musical was coming out, so that's when it came on my radar. And I listened to it and love the score. It's super fun, and it's a really funny kind of freewheeling, do-it-yourself kind of production, the kind of musical that I really enjoy, which is a little different, a little less sort of straightforwardly produced. So it seemed like a great opportunity, and I know that a lot of these students, younger students, still love this Percy Jackson universe. And so I think in that way, there's a real ready audience. There's also a HBO series that's coming into season 2 really soon. The first season was The Lightning Thief, this tale of the musical. There was a movie a while back, but the movie was nothing like the books and was pretty much a flop. But the musical, I think, gets the spirit of the books the best. And it's really fun and silly, but kind of moving, and the rock score is super fun. So that's why I thought it'd be a great option.
Now, explain real quickly, if you can, the plot, because there's probably a lot of people like me. And let's face it, Jessica, okay, my demographic probably knows nothing about this. So make it as quick for us as you possibly can.
Sure. The elevator pitch is Percy Jackson is a middle school student in this production. He's a little older. Um, and he's constantly get kicked out of high schools and things. And then his mom is sending him to a special summer camp. Basically, he finds out that he is half god. He is a demigod. So his father is Poseidon, the Greek god. And we turns out that the Greek gods have never really left us. They're just in our world in sort of different and unique ways. The pathway to Hades is in a record company in Los Angeles. The road to Mount Olympus is through the Empire State Building. And this world in this Camp Half-Blood where Percy ends up is a world where everyone there has got a godly parent. And then he and then his two friends, who are the three cast members are here, got sent on a quest to basically stop the gods from all out war and ruining the universe. So that's the quick version. But it's very funny along the way. It's not a serious Greek god situation. It's a really clever, smart, fun take on what would happen if the Greek gods were still real. The first line is, "The gods are real, yeah, the Greek gods."
I like mythology, so I grew up with all those Greek gods and stuff like that. Those are pretty interesting to me. Let me talk now to Mr. Jalen Dalton. Jalen is a BFA musical theater junior, and he is playing the role of Percy, who is the lightning thief, supposed lightning thief. So, Jalen, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Yeah, great. Now, the thing I kind of want to ask you is to start off with is the again. I'm very unfamiliar with the show. I did a little bit of research. Did all of that, but it seems that your role like is nonstop, like nonstop. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm not just talking about like easy nonstop. I'm talking about all out, constant, always moving, always singing, nonstop. How are you handling that?
Being so real, at first, I didn't think I could do it. Just like running through the show in general, I was like, "Oh, this is a lot." Because I had started listening to the musical when I found out about it, and basically by the time we actually started it, I knew all of the music just because I'd been listening to it so much. And then when I was actually doing it, I was like, "Ooh, can I do this?" Because there's like maybe only during both acts, there's probably only maybe a minute of time where I'm off stage. I'm always there doing something. But just navigating and finding the places that I can like pull back has been really helpful because there's a lot of like group singing where everybody's singing where I can be mouthing a little bit, like still keeping up the energy, but like not using my voice as much because it hasn't been physically exhausting per se, but it's been more like vocally exhausting for me. And that has been the true like navigation for me of what to find.
Olivia, I'm going to turn to you next. You play the role of Annabeth, and she is also a demigod. I believe she's the daughter of Athena. Yes. Tell us about your half of it. I mean, all of these roles, quite frankly, are exhausting. I mean, the three of you form the trio that go on the quest to avenge Percy's mother's death. And it's a lot of stage time. So, what are you finding in terms of your relationship, both to the performance that you have to give, and also to your other people on stage with you?
Yeah, I found the most helpful part of this entire process so far has been having a support system. I've had a great support system with the trio that I have right here and my friends at home. And as important as it can be to push through, I think it's equally, if not more important, to address that this stuff is stressful and this stuff is taxing. And I think it's instead of bottling it up, I just think it's so good to be able to be like, I am stressed, but I'm also grateful that I'm here and I'm doing well and I'm taking care of myself. I really think as long as you're taking care of yourself mentally and physically, I've just had a great time. I really had a great time. I love working with everyone, and I just have such a blast. And I think the audience will be able to see that in all of us.
Hey, let's talk to Fisher Sullivan. Fisher Sullivan is playing the role of Grover. And Fisher, what an interesting role. How are you handling those goat legs, buddy?
Well, the goat legs, they sure, oh, they're a spectacle. I love them so much. We had our fittings the other day, and boy, oh boy, are they a sight to see.
Yeah, we should
Uh,
point out that Fisher is playing the role of Grover, and Grover is the son of Pan, the very famous
mm,
goat satyr who runs around the woods. And apparently, in the version of the lightning thief that we have here, Pan has gotten lost and nobody has seen him for thousands of years. So, Fisher, what do
mm.
you find challenging or interesting about playing a demigod who just happens to have half of his body is a goat?
I think, all right, something that is definitely a little bit challenging is because he's like the funny best friend type character where Annabeth's the strong, independent one, Percy is the naive hero of the story. Grover is almost like this breath or from the intense taxing like themes about the story, and so sometimes it's hard to keep upbeat and keep this story like moving and lighthearted, even though at some point in act 2 there is a moment where Grover does let his vulnerable side come out and shares it with the audience in the beautiful song Tree on the Hill. And it's hard to sometimes continue staying positive while staying true to myself and the character and grounding myself in the reality of the world that we're living in. But on the flip side, it's so nice to be wacky and crazy and fun and to like be outwardly a goat, to have a goat of a time. It's lots of fun.
A goat of a time. That's great. It's really interesting to see all three of you because this particular musical follows a quest mode where all three of them kind of go on a quest. It's like a, Lord of the Rings type thing, all of that kind of stuff going on. And I imagine that the three of you probably all have can relate to that idea of a quest. You're all musical theater majors. You're all on a quest for a career. What's your relationship to this sense of quest that exists in the musical and connection to your own career aspirations? Jalen, can we start with you?
Yes. I would say I think it really real I see my whole life as a quest. Like I feel like every time I'm like doing anything, I'm like, okay, this is the mission for today. This is the quest for today. Like, and I guess that really is the life of theater because it's like, okay, I'm gonna go get this contract, hopefully, and then I'm gonna find another after that. And maybe this one will last me a month, maybe it'll last me a year, but like really going into the business is like when you're done with something, you're really just looking for the next thing. Like you're always looking for another area or like another area to be working in, whether it's like if you're moving the film or like whatever, just whatever's out there for you to find.
Hmm. Olivia, how about you?
Well, obviously, being in the show every night, I know what happens at the end, but I try to relive it as if I have no clue. Something can go wrong at any time during the show. And I feel like that's just what happens in real life. And I can use that and then apply it to the show. But in the end, everything always works out. And that's something I try to live by as well. Everything happens for a reason. Everything will work out, even if there's stuff in the show that goes wrong, but everything will still work out. And that helps me like have a little bit more peace in my life.
Okay, good. And how about you, Fisher?
I'd say to go off of questing, they because all of our characters are so young and in this huge period of change for themselves, at least Grover and Annabeth and Percy, they all have this quest of finding who they are as people rather than just this quest to find the bolt, to save the day. It's Grover's understanding of the things he's done in the past, Percy understanding his place in the world, and Annabeth's quest to find respect in a world. And I think that truly is a theme that anybody and everybody faces at least at one point or another, whether it be how no matter how old you are, everybody's always questing to find certain things about themselves.
And one of the things that appeal to me about this show thematically is this idea that there are these young people sort of growing into confidence through this quest, but then, in the end, they're really the final song, which I think is the most important and meaningful, is like "Bring on the monsters," right? There's things that all of them have been struggling with or frustrated with, right? Sort of bad parenting. But then in the end, they have this newfound confidence. They're saying, "Bring on the monsters, bring on the real world," and this idea that kind of young people can come to confidence and help change the world that might not be to their liking.
This show is high energy. This show is rock and roll. This show is skewed to young audiences, late teenagers and so on and so forth. It's very much a show of that. Can you give me a good reason why an old guy like me, who's used to the Broadway musicals of the 1950s and the 1960s and so on and so forth, should come and see this show? Because, I think we want to find why we need to get a cross-generational audience for it. That's what I'd like to know. Olivia, can I start with you?
I think, like Jessica was saying, I think a lot of the songs, especially Bring on the Monsters, a lot of us can just relate to something in our lives, even though it seems like cheesy or like this. But if you really think about it and listen to the lyrics, I think everyone can relate to that, no matter what generation you are. And I also just think, again, being able to see the joy and love and effort that everyone has put into this show would just bring that to people.
Fisher, how about you?
It's for the spectacular lighting, the humongous set that we have, and the costumes that have become absolutely just pieces of art, and the fight choreography. There is something in there for everyone. It's comedy, it's thrilling, it's there's blossoming romance. It truly, there's something everybody can find within this show as a reason to make it their next favorite musical.
Okay, and Jalen, how about you?
I feel like sometimes our growing generation of adults can be seen as like we're lost, like a lot of us like don't know where we're going. All of the love and like themes and just everything that's going to the show, like I think it's a nice showcase of how there is like a spark of people in our generation that really have love for the arts and just want to show that to the world.
And Jessica, interestingly enough, I'm going to see what I can get from you about this because you kind of sit in the middle. You're not as young as your students, but you're not as old as I am. So,
I don't know what you mean. I'm 18 years old. Um, it is, I think the students just did an amazing job explaining it. It is not for just for kids. I think the greatest family literature, it has something for everyone. It is the reason I picked this show is when I read these books with my kids, I love them just as much as they did. It's very, very funny. It is not at all, I would say, exclusionary of any age. I think any age would love this. It's a really fun, unique, catchy concept. And then I think, in terms of our production, our department does amazing work and our students are killing it. And that means the cast and that means the crew and that means the design. I mean, it's beautiful. They referenced, we have a 3-level huge set with beautiful projections. We're modeling it after the sort of Greek theater arrangement, since we're talking about the Greek gods mythology. So just for pure spectacle, I think it's worth seeing. But then again, I think it's funny and it's moving and it's really just a very, very fun show that I think anyone would enjoy, regardless of age. Even you, Tom.
oh, cut to the quick. All right. Well, listen, it's I always love getting a chance to talk at least to a few of the current students over at the department. It is always a joy for me to find that they remain articulate, hopeful, wonderful, talented students. And I want to wish you all congratulations. I know you've already played a weekend, and you're going to play this next coming weekend. So I hope we can build upon that and get some people. So thank you all for showing up. I appreciate your time, and I wish you the best of luck on your second weekend of run.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank
You're,
you.
you're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
The Lightning Thief, the Percy Jackson Musical, will be on stage at the Marvel Theater at SUNY Fredonia for 3 more performances, Saturday, November 1st at 2 p.m., and again at 7:30 p.m., and Sunday, November 2nd at 2 p.m. For tickets, call the campus box office Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at 716-673-3501 or online at www.fredonia.edu/tickets. Giacomo Puccini's La Bohème, the timeless opera of the lives of young starving artists in 1840s Paris, will be the next Live at the Met presentation on Saturday, November 8th as part of the Arts in the Afternoon series. I spoke with Tim Kennedy, founder of Buffalo Opera Unlimited, about this famous opera. I'm very, very pleased now to welcome onto the podcast a good friend of mine. He is Mr. Tim Kennedy. Tim is the artistic director emeritus of the Buffalo Opera Unlimited, a company that he founded almost 40 years ago, I think. And I had an opportunity to work with Tim directing an opera for the company. So, Tim, welcome to the podcast.
Always great to see you, Tom. Always great to be here.
So now we're going to spend some time here, a little bit of time talking about perhaps the world's most recognized and well-known opera, La Bohème. Live at the Met series is coming to the Fredonia Opera House, and we're going to see that cast on November 8th, Saturday, November 8th, beginning at 1 o'clock. So if you would, why don't you give us a little bit of an introduction to, the history of the opera written by Giacomo Puccini and a couple of lyricists, I understand.
Yes, it's I found this interesting. It's the story is by Henri Murger, that's Murger, and he wrote a novel called Scenes of the Life of Bohemians. And it's not a novel, but a collection of semi-autobiographical connected stories. And he also was a poet and a writer. So a lot of what he did was basically what he had gone through. This whole concept of the starving artist, and there are 4 of them. There's a poet, there's a painter, there's a musician, violinist, and also a philosopher. And they all lived as bohemians in Paris. I think the dates around 1840s in Paris. And they all lived together. They were starving artists. And that's where the concept began. This was very difficult to put together. Puccini drove his librettist crazy, absolutely nuts, because he always was trying to find a concept of the music, and he wanted the music almost as important as the words. Usually the librettist will write the music, will write the words, and the Puccini would, the composer would put the music adapted to the words. Actually, it was a 180 because he had all kinds of concepts how the libretto should go with the music he had in his head. And there was major problems, just major problems. And one of them wanted the guy who was responsible, Illica, who was responsible for the overall plot and scenario and dialogues. They would have major arguments and wanted to quit. So it was interesting to find out all of the problems that go on. And it's not, sound familiar? This happens all the time. It's happening today. It's no different than what happened today. Of course, when you're dealing with somebody with Puccini's fame, it's very hard to say no. But anyway, I found that fascinating. He had major problems, and who knows if it didn't work out, we might not have La Bohème. But I'm glad it worked out. Yeah,
Now, Giacomo Puccini,
yeah, yeah.
one of the great composers. I mean, he's written at least four operas that are so much in the repertoire, and La Bohème is one of them. And I think one of the reasons is because the music is so lyrical. It's one of the operas that when people come in and listen to it, the long lines of lyricism, some of those arias are so famous, and you walk away and you sort of can remember them very well. Yes.
Oh yes. Oh my gosh. I mean that's what it's known for. He's got some of the most, not only the music but the lyrics also. It's just amazing. Some of the most beautiful tunes in all of opera history. It's just his the first one of the first arias when Rodolfo meets Mimi is the Cagelita Manita. After she comes in, she needs her candle lit, and she drops her keys. And of course, he very quietly finds the key, but he puts it in his pocket because he doesn't want her to leave.
Mm.
And he touches her hand, and he says, "You know what cold hands you have." And this starts this incredible aria by the tenor, and it is magnificent. Very difficult to sing. One of the first things you do when you have the auditions, when you're casting for this production, is that the tenor, whoever it is, should sing this aria. Because one of the things that happens in the aria, I'm not a fanatic about high notes, but it has a high C, whether it's for the soprano or the tenor. A high C is very difficult to sing. It's the top of the range, usually, and to sing works like this and what Puccini demands because of his musicality. You just have to have the kind of technique to be able to sing it, not only to sing a high C, which is probably the highest note that tenors normally sing in any of the operas. So you have to have a good high C, which calls for a tenor who has very good technique. And of course, some of the greats, I mean, all of the greats have done it. Domingo Pavarotti has an incredible recording of it. Um, uh, Alfredo Kraus. Also, I like the light tenors singing this more than the dramatic ones personally. And so it calls for incredible singers. And right after, and here's something that's very interesting. Now, I was looking for another explanation or another opera that happens, but in Bohème, when he comes in, he touches her hand. Let's start there, and he sings this aria. Right afterwards, she sings an aria. I mean, it's back to back arias.
Hmm.
And I don't know many operas that does that. Usually is, someone does an aria, then there's recitative and something, and someone sings another. This is back to back. I mean, right after he's finished, she goes right into her aria, and it's basically the same thing. They talk about who they are and where they come from and what they do, and then the end of Act One goes into them confessing this first love and what they feel about them, and then so you have back to back arias, then a duet, and then the first act is over.
Yeah.
Very demanding.
I
Yeah,
have to agree with you. I
yeah.
mean, that scene in the first act that goes from, Rodolfo's aria to Mimi's aria to the tremendous duet of Suavi Fanciulla
Oh yeah.
is a pièce de
Suave.
résistance of
Yeah.
opera. I mean, wow. It's,
Yeah.
you
Oh
go
yeah.
if you
Yeah.
go and you listen to that first act, you're just going to fall in love with opera. It's a very good opera for people
Oh yeah.
who have never gone to opera to start with in many
Oh yeah.
ways. Yeah.
It's one of the first. I mean, if someone, there are a couple of them, but Bohème is certainly in that on that list If you've never seen an opera, it's the first one.
Listen, this particular production by the Met is the famous Franco Zeffirelli production, and it is a quite the spectacle because in Act
Yeah.
Two, it's just so many people on stage. The children's chorus
Um,
comes in, the soldiers come in. There's the cafe scene is bustling. Parpignon, the
yeah.
toy vendor, comes through and has a nice little aria for himself. When people watch this, what do you think about that spectacle aspect of this?
Well, it is, and you talked about Zeffirelli. If you ever go to the Met and you see Zeffirelli's second act, when the second act, when the curtain opens, they applaud the scenery. That I mean, and with the music, the exciting music, and I don't know how a director stages this thing. I mean, you know, it's amazing. I mean, it's Christmas Eve. People are selling things. It's outside of the restaurant. People are moving around doing all kinds of crazy things. So much business is going on, and you have to find out to put a place to put the leads at a table while someone is going buying well, Rodolfo buys a bonnet for Mimi, and someone told Colleen he needs a haircut at the end, in the beginning of the first act. So it's just amazing. There's so much busyness,
Mhm.
and it really takes a good director to be able to do these things and put everybody in the places where they belong. You know,
Yeah, it was
so
the most that was a real
that's
challenge because I directed it once, and that second act is just an unbelievable challenge in terms of stage composition.
I didn't know that, Tom. Did
Yeah,
you? Did
I
you?
did.
Oh, I'm glad. Then you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do.
Yes. Oh my God.
I
It's
most
just
certainly do.
amazing.
And you know what the
When I
hardest part
see
of it
that,
is? You know what the hardest part of it is, Tim? The hardest
what's
part of it
that?
is that all of a sudden, right? Musetta walks in and has this wonderful aria, Quando me vo, which
Oh,
everybody
Wonder
knows,
Limbo.
and you have to
Yeah.
you have to just take everybody that focuses on her for that aria. All of that activity just all of a sudden stops, and she's the center of attention, and it's a great moment in the second act, just a wonderful moment.
And you talk about the music, her when she first comes in, you have all of this fast music because she's just changed. She has so many moods, and you never know what she's going to do because she changes moods so quickly and so fast. But my God, when she walks in, I mean, and when the Quando Minvo, to me, it reminds me of what do you call it, like a model walking down the catwalk and turning around and doing things. And of course, she talks about how fabulous, when men see her, what they do. And I mean, it's a great thing. Now, speaking of voices, I
Yes.
think it's very important that the Musetta and the Mimi have very different sounds to me personally. They should not sound anything like each other, especially when they go for the high notes. Sometimes a lot of people said, sometimes it's when sopranos sing high notes, sometimes they sound the same or something. You really have to make it distinctive, not only character wise. I mean, the acting will do that, but vocally, I think when you listen to them, you must make sure that they're very distinct uh, between very different sounds. The musetta is written higher. I think when you see the score, she's singing the top part, and the Mimi is maybe under musetta. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken. So I mean, she should have something like maybe a lighter sound, and maybe the Mimi should have a little bit more richer sound, not a mezzo sound, but just you should be able to distinguish the two. They should be very different, not only in character, but also in timbre and voice quality. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I
It's a
agree with that.
great scene.
It's a great
Oh
scene.
gosh.
It's
It's a
it's
great scene, and Musetta doing all these things to make Marcello jealous, and Alcindoro, who the rich guy who comes in with her, and screaming about, go get my shoes.
Right,
And
right,
at
right,
the
right,
end
right.
of the scene, how they hand the bill to the
Yeah.
housing girl.
Everybody skips out, and the old rich guy gets handed the bill, and he's just
Yeah,
totally
yeah.
shocked. It's a very wonderful, wonderful scene.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you one final question, kind of to wrap it all up, Tim. I mean, you've been, an opera lover for almost your entire life, and I'm wondering, when
Yeah.
you look at La Boheme, is there something about it across all of the years that you've been familiar with it that sort of you would say to our listening audience, this is my favorite part, or when this comes up, you should really pay attention, or here's one of the things that maybe you wouldn't ordinarily notice that, catch this if you can. You got any inside ball baseball here for us?
One of the most dramatic, of course, is Mimi's death.
Hmm,
I've seen Bohème. I can't tell you how many times I've seen Bohème. Always that last page, when she dies, the music of that last page. I've never been to a Bohème, and of course, some Bohèmes I like better than others.
sure.
Never, ever have I seen someone always cries. Always. There's always someone crying in the audience. Sometimes some people have seen it many times. They always cry. It's unbelievable. And I've never seen that in an opera where people just always cry. I don't care who it is. I don't care how many times they've seen it. It really moves them to tears. And it's the music. It's Puccini at his best. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I think, the one I have to say that for me, I think the moment that got to me when I first became familiar with this, that sort of moment that nobody else ever talks about, is when the philosopher Colleen, who's a bass, has that
yeah,
beautiful
yeah,
aria where he talks about selling
yeah,
his coat to get Mimi the proper
yeah,
drugs while she's dying. That to me is like such
yeah.
a great moment that comes on you unexpectedly in many ways.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love that. I love that particular in the fourth act just
Oh yeah.
before the end of the
Well,
show. It's
and
gorgeous.
Puccini did that, and yeah, and you don't. It's so moving. You don't want to clap after it's over. It's a moving moment. Yeah,
It
and it's
is.
lovely aria, and it's short. Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
very short. I mean, it's
yeah,
a touch that is just like, I don't know. It's like putting the chocolate drop on top of the cake in
yeah,
just the right
yeah,
location. I really love that
yeah,
moment in the opera. Well, Tim, listen, it's always a pleasure to
yeah.
talk to you. I love having you
Okay,
on the podcast, and I love your
okay,
authoritative take on all of this. Thank you very much for joining me, and hopefully we'll pick up
okay.
an opera in the spring. We'll get you back in the spring for the second half of what the Met is doing.
Sounds good, Tom. Sounds
All
good.
right.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you,
Okay,
Tim.
take
Bye
care
bye.
now. All right, bye bye.
The Live at the Met screening of Puccini's La Boheme will be on Saturday, November 8th, beginning at 1 p.m. Tickets are $20 for adults, $18 for members, and $10 for students. Call the box office at 716-679-1891 for tickets, or purchase them online at www.fredopera.org/tickets. Live at the Met is part of the Arts in the Afternoon series, sponsored by Dr. James and Marcia Merrins, and underwritten with support from Daniel S. Kaufman and Timothy W. Beaver. Here is the arts calendar from October 29th through November 12th. The 1891 Fredonia Opera House continues its presentation of the SUNY Fredonia Young Artist Recital Series on Thursday, October 30th at 5:30 p.m. This series is sponsored by the Ecstasis Duo of Natasha Farney and Dr. Eleron Avni, and features performances by students from the School of Music. This hour-long recital will feature works by Bartók, Beethoven, Chopin, among others. Admission is free. Donations are gratefully accepted. The cinema series will be screening the films The Senior and Eleanor the Great in the next 2 weeks. The Senior, starring Michael Chiklis, tells the story of a 57-year-old man who returns to his alma mater for one last football game to redeem his past. Eleanor the Great is Scarlett Johansson's directorial debut and tells the story of 94-year-old Eleanor Morgenstein, played by June Squibb, who, after a devastating loss, tells a tale that takes on a dangerous life of its own. Both films screen on Saturday and the following Tuesday at 7:30 p.m., with The Senior on November 1st and 4th, and Eleanor the Great on November 8th and 11th. Tickets are $7 for adults, $6.50 for seniors, and $5 for students, and are available at the door only on the evening of the screening. Here and There, Chautauqua County History, Travelers, and Memories will present its next offering on Thursday, November 6th at 7 p.m. Entitled Barcelona Harbor, 1800 to 1860, the former county historian Michelle Henry will trace the history of this harbor and its importance in the development of Chautauqua County and the country. Admission is free, donations gratefully accepted. The SUNY Fredonia School of Music has no less than 11 ensembles and bands performing in the next 2 weeks, too numerous to mention here. Please click the link at the bottom of the show notes on the web page for this podcast to get detailed information on all these performances. The Lakeshore Center for the Arts will have its monthly open mic night on Thursday, November 6th, beginning at 7 p.m. All are invited to perform and/or come listen. Performers are asked to sign up at the door the evening of the show. Finally, an update on the upcoming performances by comedian Pete Correale here at the 1891 Fredonia Opera House. Local resident and SUNY Fredonia graduate Pete Correale will be performing his stand-up comedy at the 1891 Fredonia Opera House on Friday, November 21st, and Saturday, November 22nd. Tickets for the Friday evening concert are already sold out, and the tickets for the added Saturday performance are going fast and no doubt will also sell out. So if you haven't got your tickets for Pete's show yet, I'd advise you to do so ASAP. Tickets are $30 general admission for everyone and can be purchased online or by calling the box office at 716-679-1891. Also, just a gentle reminder, to preserve the integrity and interior beauty of the Opera House Auditorium, audience members are reminded that no food, drink, or alcohol will be permitted inside the theater. Please be considerate of the space and everyone else attending the show. You'll have a great time at Pete's show without any of that stuff, no matter what Pete says. The Opera House's management reserves the right to inspect all bags, knapsacks, and any other carried items as a condition of attending the show. Thank you. And remember, if you have an arts event you'd like mentioned on the arts calendar, please contact us at the Opera House at 716-679-1891 or email us at operahouse@fredopera.org. Please give us at least a month's notice in advance of your event to ensure a timely listing. And also a reminder to consider becoming a member of the 1891 Fredonia Opera House. Without the generous support of our members and donors, we would not be able to present the events and concerts that we do. Your membership is critical to making it possible to bring the arts to the Northern Chautauqua region, and we are grateful for every member. Membership has its benefits, so consider joining us today by clicking the link at the bottom of the show notes and choosing your level of membership. Thank you. I think my favorite series that the Opera House presents is the Gilman Family Folk in Fredonia series, which features folk and acoustic musicians from across the country and into Canada. The next performers in this series are super deluxe fiddle, banjo, and song performers John Showman and Chris Coole, 2/3 of the Lonesome Ace String Band from Toronto. I spoke with banjo player Chris Coole about his long career as a working musician. It's always a great pleasure to talk to musicians, especially when they come to the 1891 Fredonia Opera House. And with me now is Mr. Chris Coole, and he is half of the duo Showman and Coole, and they'll be coming to the Opera House on Friday, November 7th at 7:30 p.m. So, Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Tom. Glad to be here.
Yeah, wonderful. Now listen, I have so many questions for you, but I think I'll start off with the one that intrigued me the most. You're obviously Canadian. You've lived in the Toronto area for many, many years, and yet, for some reason, as I listen to your music, you seem to have been more influenced by American bluegrass, American old-timey music. You don't have the Ottawa sound. You don't have the Acadian sound from PEI or Cape Breton or anything like that. What made you take the American, more or less, side influence as opposed to the a Canadian influence of roots music?
Yeah, if I had, that's a good question, Tom. Yeah, I get asked, we get asked that a fair bit. So yeah, definitely at the foundation of our music is like American old time, Appalachian old time, and bluegrass. Is sort of everything we do is sort of is sitting firmly on that. Why not? Why did we not sort of follow the Canadian style, like some of those traditions that you mentioned? Now, first of all, if you think about it, like I'm I'm closer uh, geographically to West Virginia than I am, or as almost as close than Cape Breton. All those East Coast, I mean, they have nothing to do. I've lived in a city my entire life. I've basically lived in downtown Toronto for 52 years. So I have nothing to do with that East Coast culture. I have nothing to do with the Quebec culture. The Ottawa Valley, that's its own thing. It's 5 hours from here. Okay, so first of all, I wasn't exposed to any of that or any country music whatsoever in my life. My father went to the grave calling my banjo a guitar. Not that he loved my music, but he never really, like, they weren't like super involved. I didn't get taken to folk festivals or anything as a kid or anything like that. I just found this music. A part of the way I found this music was from the Andy Griffith Show, but that's a completely different story. But as far as like why did we gravitate to the American music, I would say if I my answer to that is that if you think of the traditional fiddle styles, like growing up, I just listened to what any kid, like I got into sort of what was old rock and roll, like so I got into like 60s and 70s rock when I was a kid, and the Beatles and stuff like that, and especially like loved Creedence Clearwater Revival. So this would have been in the late 80s, mid 80s, and the all the rock I loved was basically like blues and country based. And that's sort of that's the sound I had in my ear. So the Canadian, none of the Canadian fiddle styles have any blues in them, because there's part of it is just because we didn't have slavery, and so we didn't have the traditional music styles aren't really influenced by African American music. So when I started getting into this stuff, when I listened to the Appalachian stuff and the Southern stuff, instantly there's some blues and African American influence in there, or like a lot of it, and that actually caught, like, that was more familiar to my ear. Like the Canadian style, if you played that to me when I was 17, it would have sounded like music on a merry-go-round or something. It's like too happy. There's no like. So the Southern stuff like made sense to me. Like I could hear the blues in there, which I could relate to rock and roll and some of the rhythms. And I mean, obviously I wasn't thinking about that at the time, but I've had so many people ask me this question, and I think that's what it was. It was just like as soon as I heard it, and then I mean, of course, like anybody who gets into traditional music from outside of the tradition, there's this weird thing that you can't explain, and I mean that's like almost like voodoo or something, and who knows what that is. But I think that's why that music maybe attracted me, or I think I know it is. That's why that music attracted me more than the stuff that theoretically is more native to the country I was born in. Once I got into traditional music, I actually learned to appreciate, or I've grown to appreciate the Canadian fiddle styles. I love them. They just weren't what sort of grabbed me at that age when I was 16, 17 years old.
And that is for me, and I segue into your influence by John Hartford. You seem to be very influenced by him, and his style of playing banjo was rather unique for the time, because if you listen to John Hartford, you're not listening to just straight up 145 bluegrass tunes. What was it about John Hartford's music that really got you into that kind of style?
I was lucky enough, we all sort of going back to what you just said, it's like how do we get into this stuff? A lot of the story, I think, for all of us is you have those people that are like they're your gateway people. So for me, I had my pal Chris Quinn, who was my very first banjo player, who was I've played in bands with him for 30 years. I just did a gig with him on Saturday night, but I met him when I was 17. He was my very first banjo teacher, and every time I'd go, he'd send me home with tapes. And one of the tapes he sent me home with was the Mark Twang album, and that I still remember, like literally having that on my Sony Walkman, sitting in the back of my English class, listening to that record, and like it was like my life completely changed at that moment. And it was because it was so free. It was like it had everything that I was liking in bluegrass, but there was this freedom to it. And I mean, he's an incredible songwriter. The words again, it's like I could relate to this to the songwriting probably because what I was probably listening to at the time is like the band and Dylan and Harry Chapin and like all that type of stuff. So those words probably that style of songwriting was maybe a little bit more familiar to me than say Monroe's or Ralph or Carter Stanley's songwriting. Not that I was starting to like that stuff, but like that style wasn't as familiar to me, and they were talking about a life that wasn't very familiar to me at all, that had nothing to do. So Hartford's, I think lyrically even, there was something more familiar to it. And then the freedom of it. I mean, I was a hippie. I was like a, late 80s, early 90s hippie kid. So there was, that was in there too. It was a little bit more accessible to me, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I was a late 60s, early 70s hippie, so it's all
Gotcha.
it's a whole nother story there.
Yeah.
Listen, Chris, you played with John Showman, and you played with him for quite a long time. And again, he is a unique fiddler. Listening to the two of you is so rare because you're not. I had a hard time categorizing you. You're not exactly straight up bluegrass. You're not exactly newgrass. You're not exactly anything except Showman and Coole. How did you form this bond with John? You've been playing together for I think 25 years, and
hmm
the style seems to be a style that's unique. It's sort of the two of you are really one style. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, first of all, thank you, because what you just said is a really big compliment. Um, yeah, well, so me and John met about 2020, probably met about 27 years ago, but we started playing. Our first playing together was in a pretty much traditional bluegrass band. I played guitar in that band. So we both have played a lot of bluegrass in throughout our lives. And then that band, when clawhammer banjo has always been my main instrument, although wasn't playing it. I would play it on a few tunes in that band, but mostly playing guitar. But often when we'd be on the road, John, myself, and our bass player Max, we would at night we would do a lot of jamming old time music, and we were all sort of loving that. That was sort of always my first love, but those guys were getting into that, and a gig came up, and like this is like as a professional musician, a lot of the path of my life, if I sort of follow it, it was like the roads were all sort of leading to some gig that got offered, and more than any sort of conscious decisions. So a gig came up in Toronto that didn't pay enough for a five-piece band, but we figured, oh, we could do it as a trio, and we'd been sort of enjoying doing that. So that's where the Lonesome Ace String Band started, and that was probably about 15 years ago. And we started doing that, and at the time in Toronto was I mean, it still is a great city for music, but there was a really good bluegrass scene in the 2000s and teens, and we had all these gigs that were weekly, and so we had a bluegrass gig every Wednesday that went for like 20 some odd years, and then the trio that I'm speaking of, we got offered this gig that was every Saturday and Sunday from 10 a.m. to, it was a brunch gig, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., playing 4 sets every Saturday and Sunday. Plus, we usually had, so we were often playing about, 5 gigs a week right in Toronto. And we did that for years, and I'm talking like 10 years or something before we ever played out of town. So we've just developed, and that was a very free gig because it was like, it was, people were there sort of listening, but we had 4 sets, we could do whatever the hell we wanted. So we were started playing old time, but then we sort of, moved into just doing anything, and it wasn't like a concert setting. So, we had to sort of we were given the freedom of not having like a completely attentive audience, but then we also had to win them over. We had to make sure we played stuff that they didn't just start talking and eating over us. So that was a great opportunity. So from that, me and John have played like well over 2,000 shows together over the years, and you just build up like an instinctual thing that happens, and I think we have that. Like it's almost like a communication on stage that I think people can see and maybe hear. And both of us are very like, we like lots of different types of music, and we have very similar musical philosophies, which we talk about a lot when we're driving around and have for years. So we just sort of always been on the same page.
Toronto has always been known as a city that has a really lively busker scene, and you were a busker for about
Hmm.
10 years,
Yeah.
like around the Toronto subways and things like that in your younger days. Can I ask you what that was like?
The unusual experiences is another 3-hour podcast, but it was my day job for all through my 20s when I got out of high school at 19, and then all through my 20s into my early 30s. And I always say it's like, you hear like actors and stuff saying like, oh, they wait tables as a day job or something. And my day job was I would go in the subways and play for 5 or 6 hours a day, and then I was starting to teach, and I was still getting gigs in bars, and in summers the odd festivals started to happen, and that my other career was happening. But it allowed me to not ever, not that I never did anything else, but I was always working at music, and so it was very good for me for getting those hours in, those reps in at a fairly young age. And I often say to people, I think like looking back on my career, that's when I consider myself, that was like the most purely artistic part of my life, because it was all play music, and it was like, I don't know, it was just so tactile in a way. It was like just everything was so close to the bone, and like I'm like to give you an example, like sometimes I'd be down there, sometimes I would write a tune down there, like I'd be sitting there and I'd just start writing a tune. And when I'd write a tune, when that would happen, because like really get into like something good, it was amazing because I'd start making money. So it was like the people walking by could feel that there was something happening, and I wasn't doing anything different. I was just like noodling around working on this thing. And then I'd get a tune, and then I'd play it for an hour or something, right? This brand new tune, and I'd always make so much money when that happened. But it wasn't something I couldn't. It's not something I could turn on and off, right? It was so fleeting. But I always found that really interesting. And then also like the weather, like sometimes like I'd find the type of tune, like it's like on a day like we're having today here, like sort of a wet rainy day, if I could find the tunes that sort of the vibe would fit the weather and the mass mood, I'd start making money. And I like that's pretty cool. Like that's like art, like really in the moment, and like I don't know. So that was super cool. And
That
so
was
yeah,
that was Chris School.
yeah, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, it was a wonderful time of my life, and crazy, yeah, really interesting. I mean, like a lot of people, they see you out there, and you're no better than a homeless person to them.
Mhm.
And that's an interesting position to be in. Like I grew up in a sort of middle class, upper middle class neighborhood in Toronto, and so all of a sudden all my friends go off to university, and I'm in the subway, and half the people looking at me, they, as far as they're concerned, like I'm like a hobo or something. And that was, I mean, that's just an interesting place to find yourself in society. I think it give you some interesting perspective. And I would not be surprised if I end up ending my career as a busker. I tell people that and they think I'm joking, but I probably will. I mean, it's like, and I'll be happy if I do.
That's great. That's great to hear. You guys, you do a lot of touring, obviously, and you're on a couple of very big circuits every once in a while. You've done Mariposa, you've done Winnipeg, and all of that kind of stuff. But the thing I'm a little more interested is your history in producing albums, and I think you have a new one coming out. And John, I believe, is really had gotten into self-recording these albums that you're producing. Yes, are you bringing the new album to the Opera House?
Oh yeah, it's out on. It's right here in my hand. We just got the new CDs and we're getting some vinyl printed. We won't have the vinyl yet, I don't think, for that, but we'll have the new album. It's called Big Wing. It starts streaming this Friday.
I got one last question for you. I hope you don't
Shoot.
mind. I'm going to
Of course
ask
not.
it. I looked at your banjo and I couldn't make it out. You have some kind of silhouette, some kind of picture, some kind of something on the skin, I believe.
Yeah,
It's not just an what? Can you tell me what that is?
it's dirt from my busking days.
Is it really?
It is. Yeah, it's just a patina. But I have people every show I do. I have someone comes up and says, "Who painted the landscape on your banjo?" But it's not. It's not. It's just wear.
I kept looking at it and I'm staring at it and like that's either some kind of etching, it's some kind of landscape painting, or that's one old banjo. And I guess it's the patina from your busking days. Yeah, that hits the mark for me.
Yeah.
It really does. Chris, listen, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And it was great talking to you. I love talking to musicians and people with the kind of skill that you and John have. And I know the audience is that the Opera House are going to be very, very entertained by this because it's different. It's unique. Your style is wonderful. And I hope we get you a big audience for the show.
Thanks, Tom. I look forward to it. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Great. Thanks, Chris. I hope to see you soon.
Yep.
Showman and Coole will perform at the 1891 Fredonia Opera House on Friday, November 7th at 7:30 p.m. Tickets are $22 for adults, $20 for members, and $10 for students. You know where to get your tickets. Call 716-679-1891 or online at www.fredopera.org/tickets.
I was working in the lab late one night when my eyes beheld an eerie sight. For my monster from his slab began to rise. Suddenly, to my surprise, he did the mash. He did the monster mash. It was a graveyard smash.
And that's it for this Gathering Gloom edition of Notes from the Aisle Seat. My thanks to Jessica Hillman and her cast, Tim Kennedy, and Chris Coole for being my guests on this episode. Notes from the Aisle Seat is a production of the 1891 Fredonia Opera House in Fredonia, New York. For more information on any of the Opera House's events, call the box office at 716-679-1891, visit the website at www.fredopera.org, or email at operahouse@fredopera.org. Notes from the Aisle Seat is available wherever you get your podcasts and also on the Opera House YouTube channel. If you like this podcast, please consider following us by clicking the follow button on our home website at aisleseat.podbean.com and spreading the word through your social media feeds. If you have an arts event you'd like featured on the podcast, why don't you drop us a line at operahouse@fredopera.org and we'll see about featuring your event. Please try to give us a month's notice in advance if possible to facilitate timely scheduling. If you have any suggestions, comments, or criticisms of the podcast, just drop us a line at operahouse@fredopera.org. We'll be glad to receive your feedback. Our next episode will be on Wednesday, November 12th, 2025. I'm Tom Laughlin. And until then, be safe out there and be kind to one another.